Hey guys, welcome back to another Legion time walking video. Today we're going to be looking at the Arcane Mage. As you can see, I completed the encounter earlier today, so we're going to go over that. And while doing that, we're going to discuss talents, gear, consumables, and lastly macros. And then we'll look at the encounter and explain how things are going. Now, before we get started, please hit the subscribe button down below or give us a thumbs up if you've been enjoying the video series. Um, it would be greatly appreciated. With that, let's talk about the fight a little bit and get discussing the aforementioned things. So we're going to be going with a heavy AoE cleave build in the fight, which will be through Arcane Echo, which we will explain here shortly if you don't know what that is. But let's go ahead and discuss the talents first. So first thing, we're going to have Amplification. When clear cast, Arcane Missiles fires 2 additional missiles. Then we have Slipstream. Clear casting allows arcane missiles to be channeled while moving. Evocation can be channeled while moving as well. Then we have Rune of Power. Places a Rune of Power on the ground for 12 seconds, which increases your spell damage by 40% while you stand within 8 yards. Casting Arcane Power will also create a Rune of Power at your location. Then we have Arcane Echo, which is our big AoE damage dealer here. Direct damage you deal to enemies affected by your touch of the Magi causes an explosion that deals 166 arcane damage to all nearby enemies. Deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets. After that, we have Chrono Shift. Arcane Barrage slows enemies by 50% and increases your movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds. Then we have Arcane Orb. Launches an Arcane Orb forward from your position, traveling up to 40 yards, dealing 2014 arcane damage to enemies it passes through. Gain 1 charge when cast and every time it deals damage. So this is going to be used to get us 4 stacks of, or 3 stacks at least, of our empowerment arcane charges throughout the fight. Then lastly, we have Arcane Overpowered. Arcane Power now increases damage by 50% and reduces mana cost by 50% as well. That's our talent build. Pretty much the thought process is we're going to stack them all up. We're going to pop Touch of the Magi, Arcane Power, Macro, which also has the potion in it. And then we're just going to, well, let me back up. We're going to get a clear casting charge first from either Novas or Arcane Blast. Once we have at least 1, preferably 2 clear casting charges, we are going to Touch of the Magi, Arcane Power, and just dump missiles, and it does a ton of AoE damage. You can see here my Arcane Echo did 19.8k, and I think it was only used twice. So it's a lot of AoE damage on top of the already heightened damage you're doing during Arcane Power with a single target. Alright, next we're going to look at gear. I actually just went and bought a bunch of low stuff: 151, 151, 168, 200, 200, 151, 151, and it's all crit mastery pieces. And then I enchanted these and put gems in them if they had sockets on them. As you can see, my trinkets are a Tome of Insight, which isn't like super amazing. I think it's a World Quest trinket. No, it's from Korthia. And then we have the Soul Letting Ruby, which is actually really strong, but I just happen to have that laying around. Then I was using this Zyraz's Controlling Rod with Sinful Rev on it for the single target damage increase, which actually translates to AoE with the Arcane Echo talent. And just basic enchants on them. The biggest problem I had when I was trying to learn how to do the Arcane Echo AoE, which was suggested to me by somebody else, is staying alive in the very beginning, because Jarl is throwing his whirling axes around and they hurt a lot. So when we get to the encounter, I'll show you I'll show you a few things that we did, like popping Prismatic Barrier, waiting for a few seconds while we're trying to get an arcane charge from casting Nova before we actually begin the encounter. That way we start the fight with 1 clear casting and hopefully get 1 or 2 more as the fight's going. To a few other things, but the staying alive was really the biggest thing, because your only healing throughout there is the healing orbs that drop and your prismatic barrier. All right, next we have consumables. We're going to be using the BFA greater flasks. They give you 31 instead of 19 intellect. We're going to be using shadow core oil. We're going to be using unbridled fury potions. We're going to be using crypt food, and we're going to be using augment runes. Just typical stuff. And as far as consumable goes, nothing crazy. Then we have our buff, obviously. So I think I was at like 411 intellect or somewhere around there. And our macros, nothing crazy here either. We're going to have the arcane barrage. So it's just arcane power, trinket use, and potion use. And then after that, we had a polymorph focus macro. And those are the only two that we use. I will put those in the comments. If you have any other macros you need me to look at making, or anything else that's suggested that you don't know how to make yourself, I'll be more than happy to help you. Just give me a comment down below and I'll see what I can do for you. All right, that covers everything going into the encounter. So a few things to go over for the encounter real quick. The more AoE damage we can do while they're all three stacked up, the better it is, because they all three share a health pool. With that being said, we do have to pay attention to runes, as they will one-shot us if one of them goes off. We have to pay attention to Valkyries, because they will one-shot us if they dash across and hit us. And we have to pay attention to the Ancestral Power. Sorry, I'm super tired. Ancestral Power, shield, and cast on the Runeseer. We have to break the shield and then interrupt, and you have to make sure you break the shield, because if you put your interrupt on CD, which I think I do during the encounter before the shield's broken, you'll have to burn ice block to break it. So it's unfortunate, but it does happen sometimes. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and go over and take a look at the encounter. Alright guys, we're going to start this fight off like normal. We're going to attack Sigrun. We're going to use our Arcane Orb immediately and interrupt Farseer to pull them all over and stack them on Jarl. So at first we're going to sit here at the side doing an Arcane Explosion, and then eating our food if when our mana gets to about 75-76%, just so we stay topped off. And we're trying to get a clear casting proc right now. Once we get the clear casting, we'll go up, we'll hero, drop rune, blast, orb, interrupt Runeseer, pull him over. And we got luckier here, we got our all three, so we're going to use our cooldowns. And you can see how much damage the Touch of the Magi and the Arcane Empowerment's doing. Now we got him to, we were doing 3.8k damage. I've gotten messages about my Shaman's damage output doing 2.2k. So that is impressive damage. He's already at 60%, and we're just now starting the fight. Go ahead and do that to Arcane Orb to get some extra charges, get a little bit more damage out, and we're gonna poly there and then hit our runes. I should be barraging. Okay, there I go. Should be barraging and Arcane Explosioning as much as you can, just to get the charges and to just continue get some damage out. Okay, he did the power Blood of the Father, so now we can stack them back up for another nuke phase. We have our Rune of Power and our Touch of the Magi, so it's a great time. Orb. See, pretty much what we want to do is every time Touch of the Magi is available, we want to stack them up. Get a clear casting proc, drop Rune, drop Touch of the Magi, and then drop the Arcane Missiles into the Touch of the Magi, and it will AoE, and it does a lot of burst damage. Now, I think I'm going to use a Presence of Mind here for the single target Arcane Blasts to break that shield, and also I got the Missiles proc, which helps a lot. A barrage. Got the interrupt off after the shield was broken. Got another Touch of the Magi here, so we're going to Rune and nuke, orb, barrage, Now, for Arcane Mage, whenever he does his Blade Storm, Sigrun is going to use her Blood of the Father, so we have to get some distance, and then as soon as we get the distance, we have to go ahead and pop our sheep. More arcane explosions. I shouldn't have went out for that rune. I kind of greeted the rune, but I made it back in time, but it was very close, as you saw. So now we're running over here back to the stack, and we have all of our cooldowns up. Touch of the Magi, Arcane Power, dump our cooldowns. I mean, you can see how much damage we're getting out of that. It's just ridiculous. We're gonna come over here and get one more explosion off, empowered by the rune, and then we're just gonna go back to AoEing. We're in a pretty good spot right here, as far as where everything's at. Now, this kind of got a little hairy because I was in a really bad spot, and I didn't think I was gonna get that rune, so I just ice blocked and then blinked on top of the other one and finished out the runes. And as soon as we finished these runes, which again I greeted for these runes too, and I shouldn't have, but you can see how close it was. She's gonna cast Blood of the Father, and I'm gonna polymorph her, but it's a little bit late, so she's gonna get the buff, which means if I attack her, I'm gonna die immediately. So we're just gonna focus the runes here, and that's gonna finish out the fight. I ended up with about 880 DPS. My opening DPS was 3.5, 3.6k. That is a lot, and I've seen people do it much faster, but I was not very comfortable with the arcane rotation. I don't play arcane. I usually play frost or fire, so I was happy with my output. And with that, the Legion Mage Tower has been completed, and we can move on to the next one. If you guys have any questions or need help with anything that I can assist with, please leave a comment down below. If you don't mind, please hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, be greatly appreciated. And with that, I hope you guys all have a great day.